On behalf of Citizens Inquest of London, I want to thank everybody for coming here tonight. I would like to invite Mr. Ed Corrigan, a distinguished London lawyer, to come to the podium and introduce our speaker for the...
Thank you, Dr. Dudney. Dr. Michael Keefer holds degrees from the Royal Military College of Canada, the University of Toronto, and the University of Sussex in England. He is a professor at the University of Guelph School of English and Theatre Studies, where he has taught since 1990. He has held visiting positions at the University of Sussex in England, at the University of Greifswald in Germany, and has served as chair of the Social Sciences and Humanities Research Council's Research Grants Adjudication Committee on Literature, and also served as president of the Association of Canadian College and University Teachers of English. He's a specialist on English Renaissance literature and early modern philosophy. Professor Keefer has also published on questions of textual critical theory and literary theory, as well as on matters of contemporary cultural and political interest, where his writings include the book Lunar Perspectives, Field Notes from the Culture Wars, published in 1996, some 36 political essays, nearly half of which are archived at the website of the Centre for Research on Globalization. He is also a member of the editorial board of the online journal of news commentary, The Canadian Charger. If you're not already receiving the Canadian Charger, I encourage you to go to the Google it and also sign up for their free emailings. Now, Professor Keefer's recent book, Anti-Semitism, Real and Imagined, Responses to the Canadian Parliamentary Coalition to Combat Anti-Semitism, was published last year, of which he is the editor and part author, is an important contribution to the maintenance of democracy and free speech in Canada. Contributors to the book include Independent Jewish Voices, Canadian Palestine Support Network, Canadians for Peace and Justice in the Middle East, Faculty for Palestine, which actually has over 450 members across Canada, Educators for Peace and Justice in the Middle East, and also the Canadian Arab Federation. It also includes essay written by Canadian Jewish activists Dr. Yaakov M. Rabinkin, Linda Lemberg, Joanne Naiman, Jason Kenney, and Bruce Katz. Noted author Eve Engler also has an essay included. His books are available upstairs. And my essay, Is It Anti-Semitic to Defend Palestinian Human Rights?, is also part of the collection. I strongly urge you to buy a copy of the book for yourself, and also one to donate to your local library, a friend, or maybe a member of Parliament. Professor Keefer's book, Anti-Semitism, Real and Imagined, Responses to the Canadian Parliamentary Coalition to Combat Anti-Semitism, is a response to the increasingly strident campaign to silence all criticism against Israel's treatment of the Palestinians, as supporters of Israel are unable to respond to the mounting criticism towards Israel's policy towards the Palestinians and also its Arab neighbors. Israel's hardline supporters are attempting to silence through intimidation, attacks on funding, and by allegations of alleged anti-Semitism, because they do not want the Canadian people and the people of the world to see the Palestinian side of the issue. Uncritical supporters of Israel, including the Canadian Parliamentary Coalition to Combat Anti-Semitism, even wanted at one time to try to make it a criminal offense to criticize Israel or to question the political ideology of Zionism, which supports the existence of a Jewish state. In doing so, they're trampling on the human and civil rights of the Palestinian people. Now, I'm going to give a little bit of background, so my intro is a little bit longer than normal. Should probably never give a lawyer a microphone. But the voices which have come under attack include British MP George Galloway, who was threatened with deportation if he tried to enter Canada. The Federal Court of Canada recently ruled in a stinging indictment of Minister Jason Kenney's actions that they were politically motivated and that they were illegal. Galloway returned to Canada and gave a number of talks to overflowing audiences in support of the Palestinians and in opposition to the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, and also against the siege against Gaza. Unfortunately, the Galloway incident seems to be part of a pattern of deliberate harassment. Here in Canada, the Harper government, through Minister of Citizenship and Immigration Jason Kenney, abruptly cancelled the English language training funding for the Canadian Arab Federation because its leaders criticized Kenney's public support for Israel's attack on Gaza. The matter is now subject of legal action at the federal court, where leave was granted to pursue the claim against Minister Kenney, and he has been playing delaying tactics trying to stave off what is probably an inevitable defeat. The government has also canceled funding for Kerios, which is an internationally known Christian human rights organization which is officially supported by the 7 largest Christian denominations in Canada. Kerios' human rights work included projects in Africa, Asia, Latin America, and the Middle East. While addressing the Global Forum to Counter Anti-Semitism in Jerusalem, Minister Kenney cited the defunding of Kerios as an example of his government's fight against anti-Semitism. After 35 years of Canadian government support, this important Christian rights organization is suddenly labeled anti-Semitic and is stripped of its ability to fund its international commitments. This was a politically motivated attack because Kerios supports the Palestinians and other marginalized groups. The Harper government has also ended the country's long-standing funding to the United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestinian Refugees, also known as UNRWA. The agency provides humanitarian and social assistance to Palestinian refugees displaced by the creation of Israel. These Palestinian refugees are not allowed to return to their homes in defiance of numerous UN resolutions, including the resolution that granted Israel membership in the UN. Canada's money is now being given to Mahmoud Abbas of the Palestinian Authority for justice and security purposes. Now, in addition to sabotaging the work of human rights groups, the Harper government has politicized organizations to ensure that they serve Israel. For example, it appointed hardline Israel supporters to the board of the once respected Montreal-based Rights and Democracy Organization. That organization was set up by former Conservative Prime Minister Brian Mulroney and is supposed to be nonpartisan. Its mandate is to promote Canada's foreign policy by supporting the rule of law in troubled countries like Haiti and Afghanistan. Once Harper had appointed a majority of Conservative stalwarts to the board, they immediately held a repudiation vote against funding the highly respected Israeli human rights organization B'Tselem and its Palestinian West Bank partner Al-Haq, or Law in the Service of Man, and also Al-Mazen in Gaza. All 3 organizations have criticized both Israeli but also Palestinian human rights violations, including the December 2008 Israeli attack on Gaza. One of those who resigned from the Rights and Democracy Board in protest was Dr. Sima Samar of Afghanistan. She was honored in 2009 with the Order of Canada for defending women's rights. Only a handful of non-Canadians, such as Nelson Mandela, have received this award. Samar said she quit the board because of the policy of secrecy, the toxic atmosphere, disrespect for the 3 international members, and its narrow political agenda. Samar said in an interview from Kabul, "I find it incongruous that a center dedicated to human rights had violated the rights of its top employee, that rather than being transparent, it was secretive, and instead of standing up for the victims of human rights violations, it was siding with the violators." This politicization process of institutions has not gone unnoticed. Le Devoir, the influential French-language Montreal newspaper, even reported that the Harper appointees were harassing the Arabic-speaking employees at Democracy and Rights. In the Toronto Star, columnist Haroon Siddiqui wrote, "There remains," and I'm quoting, "there remains the larger issue of Harper's emasculating institutions that used to operate at arm's length, independent of the partisan needs and ideology of the ruling party." Beyond these public examples, though, one has to wonder what else is going on to entrench the ideological and pro-Israel agenda of the Harper government. Taken together, these actions are an attack on free speech, the likes of which we have not seen since the 1950s anti-communist McCarthy witch hunts. In my opinion, Harper's Conservative government's actions systematically target an entire ethnic and religious community in a way that is reminiscent of attacks that were made against another community in Europe in the 1930s. Let us give a warm welcome to Professor Michael Keefer to address Anti-Semitism, Real and Imagined, Responses to the Canadian Parliamentary Coalition to Combat Anti-Semitism. Thank you.